Gamut. Gamut. So we've looked now at sizing, right? How to know how big we can make it, what to do if we have to make it even bigger than that. I'd like to look a little bit now at some color things. Again, these will become more important later on as you're printing stuff. When we look at test strips, they will be a little bit, there will have some importance conceptually, but again, we won't really be able to put that into practice right now. So gamut is just the color space that some system of representation, technology of representation has, right? So if I have a camera that only shoots black and white film, right, the color space for that camera in film is black and white, right? If I have a fancy digital camera, right, it has a large sensor, or well, not the sensor size, has a sensor which can get a large range of colors. It might have a bigger gamut. The classic example that I've used before and we'll use again, like human vision, right? We can see some set of colors, right? There is the sort of the gamut, I guess, of human vision, that sort of color space that we can see. A bee has a different color space, right? So the bee looks at the flowers, sees them in a different way from how you and I might. If you don't believe me, Google it. It's kind of interesting. If you have color blindness, right? So my son has a little bit of red-green color blindness. The color space of your vision is different from the color space of someone who does not have color blindness. So that's the idea of a color space. Now, if something is out of gamut, that means it is outside of the color space we're asking to represent it. So, right, if I am looking at some brightly colored thing and all I have is a black and white film camera, right, that brightly colored thing is going to be out of gamut of whatever my black and white film camera is, because I can't represent those colors because I'm black and white. Here is a picture which was shot with a black light and some UV fluorescing ink that was tattooed on the sky. That super intense blue, right, it's a color that is hard to capture, period, but our screen is RGB, the B in that stands for blue, so our screen is going to do an okay job of showing it to us. When we go to print, that does not involve blue, it's CMYK, right? So, well, I'm sorry, I should have done that in the wrong order. So CMYK, the C stands for cyan, which is not blue, and so it's going to have a harder time showing us that color. We can check, right? If I want to check and see if something is going to be out of gamut, I can do that. I do that in Photoshop, going up to the View menu, going to Proof Setup. I can go here to Custom, and then what you get here will depend on what has happened to your copy of Photoshop over space and time. You can actually load different options here. If you go into Print Effects, they have a computer that will have sort of profiles for the printers and papers that they're using. Here, I just have some long list of things where probably you're going to look at them and be like, what in the hell is that? So I'm not going to worry about how accurate they are for what my real needs are. I'm just going to go down here and pick a CMYK one. I'm going to go for US Web Coded Swap V2. What is that? It's a big printing press profile. So I'm going to click that. That's good. Rendering intent, relative colorimetric. What does that mean? You know, I'm not going to tell you. But we have some options here. We have perceptual, relative colorimetric, and absolute colorimetric. Absolute is the wrong choice. Perceptual or relative, both of them are fine. Saturation, I honestly have forgotten what the hell that is, so let's not choose that either. I'm going to go with relative colorimetric, and then I'm going to hit OK. So my image has actually shifted a little bit. If I go back up here to the View menu, you'll see that Proof Colors is checked. You'll see also that that is Command Y. So if I hit Command Y on my screen, you'll see that my image shifts a lot. It becomes less blue and more gray, less saturated, all that stuff. So what my screen is trying to do is show me the result that I would get if I took this image right now and printed it on a web-fed coated stock printer. Okay, I'm going from one color space to another. I'm going from my RGB color space into that CMYK color space, and it can't represent all the same colors in the new color space that it could in the old color space. The more important thing here is to go here in the view menu down to Gamut warning. And what that's going to do is show you in this sort of gray tone where are the areas that are out of gamut. And the reason this is important is that this will be helpful to you when you are making a test strip so that you can say, hey, this area is out of gamut. I wonder what it's going to look like, right? There's going to be a bigger shift in what the color is from what's on my screen to what's on the printer. I should check that in my sort of test strip print. So that's why this is important. We will get later in the universe more into getting profiles for specific printers, for specific papers, so that you can do this in a slightly more accurate way. For right now, all you need to do is know how to go up there, set it to proof something that I ask for, have it proof the colors, and then turn on that gamut warning. So again, proofing the colors is Command Y, gamut warning is Command Shift Y. So go ahead, there is a second file in there that is called something clever, like yet more, oops, that's not where I want to go, yet more out of gamut, and yet more out of gamut. Looks like this. It is a mailbox. So go ahead and open that up. Same thing, proof it for US web-coded swap, turn on proof colors, turn on the gamut warning, and then screenshot a closer image of the area that is out of gamut, and put it on the Padlet. Now, I'm going to assume that you're doing that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other 2 points here, or the other point here, which is the importance of talking to your printing professional. This ties into Gamut because you're going to need to know, if you want to do this, what printer and what paper, right? You should probably know that anyway, your printer is going to use, and you're going to need to make sure that they print it on the same printer and paper, right? When you get a test strip, and then when you get the final print done. If you do all these adjustments based on one printer and paper, and then they turn around and print it on something else, all of that was for nothing. So talking to them, finding out stuff like color space, right? Like we're used to working in Adobe RGB 1998. Is that good for them, right? Ask them. We're used to working with PSDs or TIFFs, right? Can they do that? Ask them. You want to make sure that you flatten your image, right? So if I have an image here with a bunch of layers, before I go to send it to a printer, I want to save as, right? So I'm saving a new copy, probably called something something flat, right? That copy should have all of my editing right up until the very last minute, right? I should save it, assume it's done, and then save a copy that I'm going to flatten. You can flatten it up here under layers, right down there, flatten image. And boop, all the layers go away. So, right, find out if they can take a TIFF, find out if they can take a PSD, ask them about bit depth, 16-bit, 8-bit, doesn't matter to them, so that you want to give them the file that is going to give them the smoothest workflow. That is going to cause you the fewest problems, going to cause them the fewest problems. Having that sort of little bit of a relationship of talking to them maybe will be frustrating, but hopefully will mean that you have a better handle on things when you call them up later with a question or a concern. So go ahead, do the Gamut thing, screenshot that, put it on the Padlet, and we will be back to talk a little bit more about some more printing stuff.